Hi, my name's Simon, and I just wanted to show off our Arduino sequencer that I've been building. The project basically started with building the Look Mom No Computer trigger sequencer, his big button sequencer, which has track and bank knobs and switches. I really like the idea of having the tracks and the banks, and it just worked really well for me. So then I expanded that and did a version that was MIDI based and could play melodic lines or polyphonic lines. And then I moved away from the knobs of bank knob and track knob and moved more towards buttons because it allowed me to do a lot more as far as configuration without doing any menu diving. So here it is. I'll focus on that in a minute, but right now I just wanted to walk through my setup. I basically have a CZ1000, a Roland JX3P, and this is an Alesis QS6, which I'm using as a master controller. I actually don't use any sounds off of this. I got some rack gear going on, and I got the Moog Mother 32s and some Behringer, their Eurorack stuff, a Neutron, a Cat, and a Model D. So I'll be driving all that. Yeah, so as far as how it's all wired and everything, right now all the synths are on their own MIDI channel. And like I said, this one is being used as a master controller. This is on MIDI channel 9. It goes into the sequencer, and then from there everything gets mapped to the other synthesizers. So I will show how that works right now. So let me switch over. I'm going to get a better shot of the keyboards there, and we have an overhead shot of the sequencer here. So, like I was saying, right now we're using this as the master controller out on MIDI channel 9, and basically anything I play on here comes through into the sequencer and then gets mapped to one of these 8 MIDI channels, MIDI tracks, and or to the drum tracks, and I'll get to that in a minute. So right now we're going into track 1. Track 1 right now is mapped to my Roland JX3P. So when I play the chord on the controller, it's actually coming out of here. If I pick the second keyboard, this is mapped to the Casio. So just going through here, I've just got different synthesizers mapped to different tracks. Now, one of the nice things you can do is you can change the MIDI channel real easily. So just hit the MIDI button, and basically this red light is telling me that this track is mapped to that MIDI channel. If I hit this, now what it is this track is mapped to channel 1 and channel 2. So now when I play a chord, I'm going to get both the Roland and the Casio together. So that's great for layering things. It's great for doing things like maybe in the verse, there's only one, the Roland is playing the pad, and then in the second verse, I just hit a button, and now the Casio's layering on top of that. So that's kind of nice. Let's put that back there so we don't lose it. It also allows me to easily change voices. So if I start with that, but now I want that track to only go to the Casio, I can change voices. So the other thing that's nice is there is a quick shift function, reset MIDI, and that maps everything back to 1-to-1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So that's the MIDI mapping for the melodic stuff on the drum side. So here, each one of these is a drum trigger. The whole set of 8 keys is mapped to MIDI channel, this right now, 14. But if I wanted, I usually have a drum machine. I don't have it right now, but I usually have a drum machine on 14 and another one on 15, so I can easily swap over to a different drum machine. Right now, each of these is mapped to kick, snare, etc. So there's my kick. This red button is a single hit. The yellow button is a 16th note fill. Need to do a little bit of debouncing on there, but You get the idea. That's record. Both of these are recordable, so it's kind of cool. I'll show you how I use that in a little bit. So yeah, so each one of these gets mapped either to, it can be mapped to a trigger out. Right now I've only done 2 trigger outs on this version, but the plan is to put all 8 there. Previous versions had all 8. But it also does a MIDI note out. So actually I should point out, these are right now mapped to 7 and 8, so you can see it light up when I do 7 and 8. I can also map that to MIDI. So one thing that I wanted to improve on the KeyStep Pro and evolve some menu diving is if I want to remap this. So right now, because I'm sitting on the drum tracks here, if I play my keyboard, it's going actually to my drum machine. Okay, and basically right now this channel is mapped to that kick drum that's on this C here. If I wanted to change that, I can hold down the MIDI button, and now I just press that F. Now when I do this note, that changed to an F. So instant 1-button drum map. That map gets stored into memory for that MIDI channel. So if we do a shift MIDI, right now I'm on drum map 3. So MIDI channel 14 is on drum map 3. If I was to say switch over to my second drum machine, if I do a shift MIDI, and because I'm on the drum buttons here, it's going to do MIDI, that's using drum map 2. And whenever I do one of those changes where I shifted, say from a drum kick to a snare or whatever, it automatically remaps that. I may put in a reset function at some point, but right now it just is sticky. So let's just make sure we're back on drum machine that's on 14, and we're on MIDI map 3. And we mapped that back to the kick. So that's the drums. Well, we're still talking about MIDI clock. So this supports MIDI clock in and out, so it can be used to drive other sequencers. It can be driven by another sequencer. It also has a clock out to drive your rack or whatever, and then it has a clock in. If I do a shift button, that's going to let me adjust the clock. So there's clock source MIDI, clock source 16th notes in, 8th notes in. I have a modded Rhythm King drum machine that does 8th notes out, so that's where I use that. And then back to internal. That's really the only menu that I have going right now. There's a couple other things that use that knob, but that's really the only menu that I have. Everything else is done through single or double key presses, and we'll get to that. So let's go ahead and start making a pattern. I have a built-in Piezo metronome. Stole that from the BeatStep Pro, and so you may not be able to hear it, but because it doesn't come out the sound, it's actually a Piezo speaker in the box, so I can just barely hear it. Oh, I should point out pattern lengths. So this display here, basically, let's start backwards. So backwards is banks. So there's 4 banks. I guess I should have mentioned each track is based off of 16th notes, and it's got 16 bars of 16th notes. So that's 256 steps for everything. Each bank then can have the 256 steps. I can switch banks. So you may have a verse, chorus, bridge, intro kind of thing. Each bank can have its own length. So shift bar is going to show me the length. So right now I've got 16 lights, which means bank 1 is at 16 bars. So that's great for maybe a verse. Okay, so right now bank 2 is set at 8 bars. I have a bug there that should have changed to 8. But I can look at the lights and find out that's 8 bars. Bank 3 is 8 bars. And bank 4 is 4 bars. So again, perfect for things like a 16-bar verse, 8-bar chorus, 8-bar bridge, whatever. So yes, that light is not updating correctly. So we're out of 16 bars. I'm actually going to change it back to 2 because this is kind of how I build patterns using this. So we're going to hit, I got my beat there. I can hear the metronome and it's just cycling between the 2 bars. I'm on drum 1. So I'm going to hit the record button. 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I got my drum, my kick beat. Okay, let's see, I think that was the hi-hat there. Yep. And I'm just going to hit the fill button. Okay, so now I got a basic drum pattern going. Now, one thing I can do is I can do step edit. There's 2 types of step edits. There's step edits on drums, which is actually a little bit more powerful. So I hit the step button. And so I'm on the hi-hat track, and basically what these red dots are showing me is that I have a hit on all 16 notes. And I am on bar 1 of 2. I can turn the knob here and go to bar 2. If this was a 16 bar pattern, I could go to all 16. So let's start on 1. So one thing I can do is I can do a shift and hit one of these buttons, and when it goes red and green, that's an accent. So I'm going to put on the 16th notes some accents on the first bar and some accents on the second bar. And actually, let's just make this interesting. If I hit it one more time, it turns them both off, which makes that a rest. So let's do that. Sure. Okay, so now I've put some accents and some rests on the hi-hat. Maybe not the greatest pattern, but you get the idea. So that's step editing. If I hit step again, it goes away. I'll show you step editing again later when we come to the melodic stuff. If I just hit the bar button, that allows me to jump to a bar. Right now I'm on 2. Sorry, I was on 1, now I'm on 2. And also, just when we're sitting in this normal state, the green line here is bars, and the red line is the note value within that bar. So you'll see bar 2, bar 1, that's pretty obvious. If I was to jump, actually I'll hold off on doing that. So, okay, so now I've got this 2-bar drum pattern, maybe not the greatest, but we'll stick with it. So one thing I do a lot is we're kind of shooting for a 16-bar verse. I've got 2 bars now. So one thing I can do is I can hit the function fill track, which is the second button. And actually, let's go to the kick. So I'm going to go function fill track. What that did is it took whatever track, drum track I'm on, or actually it doesn't have to be drum track, it can be any track, and it basically took the 2 bars of that and filled up the rest of the bank for the kick drum with that pattern. So now if I go to 16 bars, what you'll see is it's going to play the first 2 bars of the full drum pattern we had, and then it's only going to go to kick because I only filled the kick. So now that kick pattern is going to play over and over and over again until it gets to the end of the 16-bar pattern. So let's go back to 2 bars. So we're back at the 2-bar version. So now I've got the kick going all the way through. Let's do the same thing for the snare, because the snare is just on the 2 and 4. So we're going to go function. Now I'm on snare, function, fill track. Okay, so that's going to take those 2 bars and carry that around. Okay, now what I'm going to do, let's get actually tricky here. Let's go to 4 bars. Let's go to the hi-hat. And what I'm going to do is, we've got a 4-bar, we're at 4 bars right now. So if I hit play, we filled the kick and the snare over all 16 bars. So we're good there. The hi-hat, we still only have 2 bars of. So it's going to play 2 bars, and then it's going to stop. since I'm set at a 4-bar pattern length, it's going to loop at 4 bars and record that. So let's just record a 4-bar hi-hat pattern. So 2 bars were my previous ones. Okay, so now I've got this 4-bar pattern. So now what I can do is I'm set at 4 bars, I can do, and I'm on the hi-hat, I can do function, fill track, and now that's going to take every 4 bars and copy those over into the 16-bar pattern and fill the entire thing. So now if I go shift bar 16, okay, I'm at 16 bars. Now the hi-hat's going to go all the way through, but it's going to be a 4-bar pattern versus the 2-bar pattern that the other 2 were. Okay, so it's just going to repeat that. So that's a cool way to quickly start with a 2-bar drum phrase or some variation on that, and then, copy that into a full 16 bars. The other fun thing to do there then is I can do, so I'm going to go to bar, let's start on bar 13, so which means I've got 4 more bars left when I hit the play button. So that bar and pressing a button just allows you to jump around in a sequence. And we're going to pick snare. And so this is great because what I can do is we're going to hit record. And those last 2 bars, I'm going to stick in a snare fill, which basically just writes on the beats that I do. So it's 14, 14, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's basically how I like to work. So let's do this. We're going to go to bar. We'll go to bar 9 just so we don't have to listen to the whole thing. But you've got, your regular first 8 bars are the same. Okay, and then at the end of the 16-bar phrase, we're going to get our drum fill. So that's usually how I work with drums, is I'll do a 2-bar pattern, maybe a 4-bar pattern if I want a bit more variation, but I do at least a 2-bar pattern of kick, snare, hi-hat, whatever, and then I fill the entire thing, and then I go back again and I do fills and variations and that sort of thing. A couple of things you can do. Right now I have it under shift function erase. So whenever I hit shift function erase and things are playing, it'll erase that track that I'm on and create blank spaces. So that's a quick way to just erase little sections. I can do a shift function clear track, and that clears the entire track that I'm selected. So if I did it now, it would clear the snare drum track, or I can do click function clear bank. That would clear the entire bank, or a shift function clear all, which clears everything and gives you a clean slate. Okay, so we hit function clear all. Okay, so one of the features I wanted to show was the automatic downbeat detection. So basically, even though it has the built-in metronome, this was a feature I added before I added the built-in metronome. But I always, when I'm playing against something, I prefer playing to a drum beat versus a metronome. I just find that easier. So the way I set it up is the first beat that you record, whether it's drum or an instrumental beat, that first beat is going to be the downbeat. It's going to be the 1. And then everything else can be built off of that. So I usually always start with a kick, and most of my songs have a kick on the 1. So we'll start with that. So we're going to do record, play, and so watch. I'm going to hit the drum beat on an off random number or step, and you'll see it'll jump to the 1. This will reset to 1-1, and then everything else is based off of that. So in my head, I'm listening for the tempo, but it's not really super critical that I hit it right on a beat. All I really need to understand is the tempo. So okay, so if you were watching carefully, that jumped to the 1, and that became my downbeat. Okay, so if we go into step here, You can kind of see better where the red lights are the beats. I'm actually going to do highlight the one a bit. Sure. And let's have some fun, and let's accent that move. Okay, so we're going to do the snare. Oop, I missed that one. Okay, so here we're there. Yeah. Oops. Actually, I don't want that. Okay, so now we got the tune snare. So, nice to have step edit. Okay, and then we're going to go to okay, you probably heard a little glitch there. Okay, so you probably heard a little glitch there. Every once in a while, I've got some timing issues that once you hit play, it's usually fine. It's more when it's recording and gets a bit confused. So I still need to work those out. Let's exit step edit mode. So now I've got kick, snare, hi-hat. I'm going to do a shift function, fill all. So whereas before I showed just plain fill track, where it did the individual tracks, if I do a shift function, I get fill all, which basically takes everything and fills it. So that's a kind of a one-step process. So now if I go to bar length of 16, it's going to repeat that pattern throughout the whole 16 bars. Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead and we're going to jump to bar 13. And I'm going to do some fancy fill. So let's see. We've got... to bar 13, we're going to do snare. Okay, so yeah, again, not the greatest. I'm not really focusing on what I'm playing at the moment. I'm more focusing getting through a decent take of this video. Okay. So, alright, not the greatest, but it works. Okay, so now I've got this 16-bar drum pattern. It's got some variation on the end. Real easy to do. Okay, let's finish off with the drums, because I think that's it for the drums. And let's go ahead and move into the melodic stuff. So we're going to go back to, actually, let's go to track 8, which is kind of my bass patch. This is a monophonic patch. Okay, so let's play a little groove there. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to make it a 4-bar groove. Okay, so we'll do something like that. 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we got that. I have this weird thing with my Mother 32s. I've seen other people have similar problems where when you're using a sequencer, it gets stuck notes. So ignore that stuck note. That's not me. That's the Mother 32. So here we go. Okay, so we got a nice little bass line going there. Okay, again, I can do a function. I'm sorry, let's do function, fill track, and then that's taken that 4-bar bass line and filled it to the full 16 lines. Let's do 8, and let's do a pad. So let's see what I do. I did 16 and a CG. Let's see if that works. So something like that, sure, why not? Again, I'm not focusing on what I'm playing too much here. I'm just trying to create this demo. So, and actually before we do that, we'll do func shift, and we'll make this a 4-bar too. So let's go back to 4 bars. 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So, not perfect, but okay. So, then we're going to do function fill track. So now that's taking that track and put it in the full 16 notes. So now we got bass, we got pads. Let's do arpeggiator. So I like doing that on I got a Roland MKS10, which is kind of an older Roland synth, but it works well on arpeggiators because it's got a built-in chorus and tremolo effects. So we're on track 5. We are, let's see, we're still doing a 4-bar pattern. We'll leave that. So I'm going to do shift arpeggiator, and I turn on the arpeggiator. So that blue light means the arpeggiator's on. So now when I press play, okay, I get the arpeggiator. So, a couple of things about the arpeggiator. So, we've got up, pattern direction, you got up, you got down, you got include the endpoints. Exclude the endpoints, you've got random. So, that's always a fun one. So, if we do the arpeggiator button, random. So, one thing I'm going to do here, just because the music and the mic and all that, you may not get all this. So, I'm going to do a shift mute, and basically that mutes all the music tracks. The other way I could have done that, I suppose, is I could do also a shift. I can do solo, solo track 5. So now only track 5 is playing. I'm going to turn off record because I don't know why that went on. Okay, so right now I'm soloing that. Let's solo the drum, kick drum too. Okay, so there's the arpeggiator. I realized I have mono out going in, so you might not be getting all channels. Let's turn down the depth. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so there's the arpeggiator, and I am doing, right now I'm doing up. Let's go to random. So there it's playing random notes. I can do random. Oh, and it's doing it over 2 octaves. So I could do it over 1 octave. Just those 3 notes. I could do add an octave. So that's going to be 6 notes. I can add 2 octaves. That's going to be 9 notes. I can do 1 octave below. So it's 6 notes, but going below. Or I can just do 0 octaves, which is only the 3 original notes. You can have up to 10 notes going at a time. You can change the rate. You can change the gate length from whole notes to half notes, basically half time. And then I have random weight, which I wanted to kind of highlight. So random weight basically takes the root note, in this case is C, and it will play that note more often than the other two notes. And so this is great to help you establish that center note, that root note of your song or the home note of your song. Or if you're doing a drone, you can have that note be the drone note kind of thing. So yeah, that's the arpeggiator. So go back and we're going to go turn off those solos. Okay, so I just turned off the solos and now we're going to record that arpeggiated pattern. Oh, I have to remember what I did, a C and a G, so, okay. Nope, that's not right. I changed too early there, so we're going to go Shift, Function, Clear Track, so that's going to clear track 5. And let's try that again, but also I was enjoying the 2-octave range we had. So let's leave that, and actually I was enjoying the kind of up a little bit more. So we're going to leave that, set it that way. So let's try that again. So now we've got the arpeggiator layer. We're going to do a function fill track. So that, again, that takes that track, spreads it across all 16 bars. So now we can go ahead and change the 16 bars and okay. So that's basically what we have. Next thing I want to show, so that's our arpeggiator, so we're going to turn that off. We're going to go to another similar voice. Let's see, this is the cat. No, let's not do that. Okay, we'll do that for now. Excuse me. So, let's see. So now we're going to go to the Turing machine. So that is a Shift Arp. Turn that on, and now you got a blinking blue light. That means the Turing machine is on for that track. Now the arpeggiator, the way that worked is that will only play if you're holding the notes down. It doesn't have a lock on it. I may do that at some point. But as you saw, you can record the arpeggiator. So that's pretty much what I do now, is if it's something that I want to keep playing, I just record it. The Turing machine works a little bit different because it does lock. So basically what you've got here is it uses the same up, down, include, exclude, random, and random weighted as the arpeggiator. So I'm going to put in random weight. And it uses the same note spacing, 16th notes. It uses the same octave range. So I'm going to put in actually 1 octave. And it uses the same gate settings. Okay. But it also has additional parameters. So if we go Shift Arp, we're going to go to Scale. So here we can basically pick the scale that the Turing machine is going to pick notes from. So we're kind of sitting in kind of a C major thing here. So let's see if we did a Lydian. I'm sorry, a Mixolydian. That would give us a B flat. Why not? That'll make us a little interesting because I don't think I played a B. What did I do? I put the C and then I put the G. And so yeah, so that should work. Okay, so now we're going to stick to Mixolydian, which is going to put us in a B flat, or add the flatted 7. So we've Mixolydian, and then we're going to go to Shift Length. Length is the Turing pattern length. So it can be independent of the overall pattern length. So let's set it to 8. Complexity. Complexity is how often it does something other than play a note. So, sorry, go back. 100% on complexity means that it will change the note. It'll play a note 100% of the time. It will never do a rest. It will never do a tie. So here you basically get a 16th note pattern, kind of like an arpeggiator. If I did 50, then it would mean that 50% of the time it would play a note, 25% of the time it would rest, 25% of the time it would do a tie. If I did 10% of the time it would play a note, the other 45 and 45 it would do either a rest or a tie. So the idea is 100% complexity means all 16th notes, the notes are always changing, versus 10% complexity means the notes are kind of moving slowly and kind of a bit more static or silent. So just for now, we're going to leave that at 100. If I go to probability, probability is basically the probability that the note is going to change. So here, 100% probability means that it's going to do something new every time. 50% of the probability means that it's only going to change something 50% of the time. So what this does is, a good way to use this is you start at 100, you fill up your pattern length, which again is separate for the Turing machine, so 8 bars. You fill up 8 bars of 16th notes at 100, because that's going to guarantee that you're going to get a different 16th note every time. And then once you get a kind of a pattern you like, you can turn this down to, it actually doesn't go to 0, but you can, I could easily change that. But right now you turn it down to 10, and what that means is over time it will repeat that pattern, but over time it'll gradually evolve, because every 1 out of 10 16th notes, it may change something. So if we start here, let's do this. We're on 3. I'm going to solo 3, and we're going to play. And so nothing is playing right now. With the Turing machine, it does not actually start until you pick a root note. Again, we're in the key of C, so I'm going to pick, and I want an upper range. So we'll pick a C here. Okay. That's kind of cool. Sounds like a ice cream truck. Okay, so it's doing 16th notes. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go back to complexity, and I'm going to turn that down. To 40. So what 40 means is 40% of the time it will play a note. The other, what would that be, 30 and 30, it's either going to rest or it's going to continue playing the previous note. So, and again, we picked Mixolydian as the scale. And then also we're on random weight. So what that means is it is going to weight the root note, so it's going to play C more often than any other note. I could also do an up-down. So there, you're not randomly picking notes, you're only playing notes in the scale, but you still get that random rhythmic pattern because of the way the complexity is set. We could do... So this is going to do a gradual up and down. I like doing random weighted. It makes kind of melodies in the kind of the key because it's got that weighting factor. So now we go, we're going to do shift, get a pattern we like. Sure. Okay, so now we're going to go shift probability, and I'm going to turn that to 10. So what this means is we picked an 8-bar pattern length. So it's going to repeat those 8 bars over and over and over again. But every 10% of the time, it's going to change a note. So over time, this will gradually evolve into a different pattern. It'll always be a Mixolydian in the key of C, so it'll always be in the key of your song. So it should always fit. Sometimes you get some random weird stuff. Now I'm going to turn this down because I think it's a bit loud for the song, and we had soloed it. So let's see, we're at So the arpeggiator and the Turing machine are kind of competing. So let's go ahead and we're going to mute 5, which was the arpeggiator. So we just turned off the arpeggiator. Now you hear the Turing machine. If I hit another note, it'll change the root note for the Turing machine. Now, so I hit another note. I actually hit a C higher, but because of the randomness factor set at 10%, it's not going to instantly change and move everything up an octave. It's basically picking the root note from its random pool. So over time, it will move it up an octave. So that can be a cool effect too. Let's go ahead and set the Turing probability to 100, so it is going to change every time. And actually, I think and you know what? I'm not a big fan of that mixolydian. That's not working for me. So we're going to go Shift, Arp, Scale, and we're going to change it to be a little bit more pleasing. So we're going to change it to the major pentatonic scale. So. Still not the greatest. I've done better. But that's part of the fun of playing with this is Turing machines, is you kind of never know what you're going to get. You know, maybe if we throw in a minor. Sometimes minor pentatonic over majors works. Okay, and actually let's try something a little fun here. So we're on track 3, which is going to MIDI channel 3, which is Roland MKS 70. But I'm going to add in the Casio because we haven't really done anything with that. And I'm going to add, so now that Turing machine is going to MIDI channels 2 and 3. And we'll go over here and we're going to pick a what's a good, let's try the trumpet. Sure, that's kind of a sharp attack, which works good for this kind of stuff. So let's see what else we got. Oh, that's cool. Okay, and if I wanted to, I can then. So now we're only going to the Casio on that channel. I guess one thing I should point out, the tracks, only one track can go to, how do I say this? One MIDI channel can only receive from one track. So a track can go one to many. So a track can go to many MIDI channels, but a MIDI channel can only receive from one track. So I can't have the chords that are playing on track 1 go to the Casio and the Turing machine that's on track 3 go to the Casio. The Casio can only go to one track. Okay, so that's the Turing machine. Again, the Turing machine is stays on in the background. So if I change, we gotta hit that to clear that. If I change track that I'm working on, the Turing machine is still on track 3. I'm not using it at the moment. That's why I don't have the blue flashing light, but it's still on. If I wanted to turn it off, I could do a Shift Arp Turing machine, and that would turn the Turing machine off. Let's turn it back on though. And we're gonna go, actually, I wanted to do, what was I? I'm gonna change the scale again. Go back to the major pentatonic. So, okay. Oh, okay, and when I did the Turing machine on and off, I turned off the root note. Okay, I think I might have accidentally hit the wrong note there. Okay. So, not my greatest work, but Now the other thing I can do, so the idea with the Turing machine is you actually want it to evolve over time, and you want it to evolve outside of the pattern. So if you've got this 16 bar pattern or whatever, 8 bar pattern looping over and over and over again, you want the Turing machine to kind of sit on top of that and evolve. And that's why I leave the Turing machine locked on like this, is that if you're doing a performance, you can just let the Turing machine run the whole song and kind of treat it like a drone maybe. But if you want to, if you're getting a Turing machine pattern that fits your song in that time, you can record it. So, okay. Not sure what's going on there. Happens every once in a while. I do have a function, a mini panic, because sometimes I don't know if it's my bug or if it's the bug in some of the MIDI protocols in some of these devices, but it's probably my bug. But I do have a mini panic just when that happens. So we're going to try that again. So now it's recording this arpeggiated pattern. Okay, so now if I hit play. Okay, so now there's a weird thing. And more panic. So yeah, probably my bug. Now, here's the thing that you can do. You can actually layer those and do multiple Turing layers. So when I hit play, the Turing machine is still on, so it's going to be playing its part. But the recorded part is also going to play underneath it. So you're going to get 2 notes, and that's probably where my bug is at. Let's see if we can get it to work. Yeah. Okay. There's something going on. I can say the Casio is very finicky when it comes to MIDI. You know, it's 1980s technology. So I'm not going to take all the blame because I think there's something going on there. So, but if I turn the arpeggiator off, or I'm sorry, the Turing machine off, now we get the recorded version. Okay, not bad, not my greatest. Okay, so that is basically all that. Let's see, did we get everything? We got all the Turing stuff. We got all the track fill, octave up and down. So I can do a function. And I can transpose everything up an octave up and down. Panic, restart, basically restarts the clock. Create some glitchy. Okay. Actually, that reminds me of the glitch feature. So let's go to the bass. So, okay. So now I got a pattern. I'm on the bass line. Let's solo the bass line. A little bit of glitchiness. And it basically does a 16th note for each note rather than holding any notes. So, and again, you can record that. So why don't we do this? Let's, just for fun, we're going to go to jump to bar 13. We're going to do record. Okay, so now if we go back to bar 13. So again, another fun way to kind of add fills and variation to your pattern. Okay. So there's kind of a performance mode with the mute, so you can start tracks with certain parts muted. So we could do something like this. We're going to mute the Turing track and the arpeggiated track, and let's jump to 8 bars. Okay, so we're just starting here. And I can bring things in and out. So kind of a live performance that does not record. It does get saved though. So like one thing you can do is you kind of set your starting mute and solo configuration for a song. You save the song, and then that way if you're performing it, you can bring it up, you start in that configuration, and then you can build off there. And as long as you don't save or update, then it will always start out that way in that known state. Speaking of save and update, so I can do a shift function save. Since I don't have a keyboard, it automatically just assigns it a name, file 9. If there's a memory card in here, if I take that out and put it in a computer, you'll see file 9. I can rename it there and then put it back in here. And so actually if I do shift function load, I can scroll through my different files, and you'll see I have this one, I will. It does the old fat 32 file naming thing, so that's why it has the -1. But at least you can rename files. Once you get a file you like, you can then take it to computer, rename it, bring it back here, and it will have that new name so that you can find it again. Okay. The other thing you can do, so you can save it. It'll save it to an empty slot. You can hit update, so it'll save it back to that slot that you're currently in. So you basically do save if you want to create a new file, update if you want to update the existing file. Reload will bring you back, reload the file from the last time it was saved. So again, this is great if you have a performance thing, you tweak all these things, or you add things, whatever, you change mutes and all that, and then you just want to get back to the fresh state again, you can hit reload. And that's the file system. Let's see. Let's do this. Nope, it's going to make me do that. Okay. All right. So it just reloaded that file. That's that. Bank. So now if I go to the second bank, nothing there. So one thing I can do is I can do a copy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do copy, and it says copy track from bank or track. So we're going to say from bank 1, and then copy track from track, and we're going to say this track, the kick drum track. And then I got a little bug here, copy to bank and to track. So if I hit a track button here, it's going to copy whatever is in bank 1 track, drum track 1. And it will put it into any one of these. So you see this green light these green lights are lit up because it means I can pick any of those. I can't copy drum tracks into melodic tracks. I can't copy melodic tracks into drum tracks. That's why these green lights are lit up. So what I want to do though is I want to take that kick drum pattern that I have in bank 1, and I'm going to put it into bank 2 in the kick drum slot. Okay, so basically it copied that. So now we're going to do copy bank 1 snare drum pattern, and we're gonna, oops, let's do that again. Copy bank 1 from 2. Okay, so now if I go to bank 2, I should have the kick and snare from there. So that gives me a starting point. I can decide later to delete that and start fresh, but that's usually what I do. I did have the ability to just copy entire banks, but that is actually broken at the moment, so I won't demo that. But it allows me to basically get a starting point there. I can set my bank, like, let's set it to 4, and we're gonna So now we have a different drum pattern. I can do a shift function, fill all. That's the whole bank. That's on a per bank basis, so it's going to take that drum pattern, fill the entire bank with that, whether I use it or not. I may not, because right now I'm set at a bar length of 4. But let's go to a bass line, and I don't know, what are we going to do? Sure. 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and let's do the do that. Okay. 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and again, I think that's more the Casio than it is me. So that's bank 2, it's a 4 bar. If we go back to bank 1, we had that on an 8 bar. So let's just, for brevity, make that a 4 bar. So now what I can do is I can hit play. It's going to start on bank 1, and I can queue up bank 2. So that's pretty standard. Again, though, each bank, so that's going to have 8 bars. That one's going to have 4. Each bank can have its own length. So verse, chorus, however you're breaking it up, you can have your own pattern length in the different banks. But again, that's pretty standard. And I think that is pretty much it. I do have an undo function. I'm a little afraid to show it right now because it doesn't always work. The other thing that it does is the file system for there goes to the memory card, but it does also use the flash, that every time you hit the stop button, it takes your current patterns and stores them into the Arduino flash, and that basically saves what you're working on from a power cycle. So if you then turn things off, when you come back and turn things on, the previous pattern you were working on should have loaded up, which is kind of nice. Yeah, so then I think that's pretty much it. I want to do a little bit more with the randomness stuff. I was watching a great YouTube video with Brian Eno on some random drum fill kind of stuff he was showing off that I think could easily work in this model. I still got some tweaking to do as far as performance stuff, but I think the idea is, every day that I come into my studio to work on this stuff, I usually do a doodle where I just start up with a blank slate and just put in random stuff, and sometimes I get crap like I did today. Sorry about that. Sometimes I get great stuff. But it's just fun to kind of do a doodle. The other thing I've got it set up to do is, because everything is sent out on its own MIDI track, MIDI channel, I basically have my DAW set up to receive each individual MIDI channel. So I can hit record on my DAW, connect it to this, hit play, and the whole thing kind of dumps into my DAW. I can sync the clocks through MIDI, so I get it synced on the DAW, and that's usually what I do. Is I use this more these days as just kind of a scratch pad. So I come in here, I doodle with this, I can move around quickly because everything is a button press away. I can create some ideas, then I dump it into the DAW, then I do arrangements, then I might change voicings, whatever. At some point, I do want to make the ability to take the file that is saved on the SD card, move that to the computer, and then have some little app that translates that into a MIDI file and do transfers that way, because then I can do that two-way. There's not really an easy way to do that at the moment, to dump the DAW back into this. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Love to know what you think. Thanks.